Hello, so I am Miriam Walter and this is Carl Pittman. Today is June 9th and we are Team 1B in nursing. So we've split our nursing team and we will be working on revising the class Nursing 495W. This is report out week number 1 and we are at the very beginning in our process. So to answer the questions that we are to address, first of all about expectations. For me, yes, it really was a little bit different than I expected. I expected more about technology, actual applications within Blackboard, maybe learning more about other applications like we did do a little bit on Wednesday. I didn't expect more of the global perspective and learning about teaching in general, which I understand perhaps the reason for doing that. One of the teachers that presented for us said that she wanted to start with a more difficult task, and maybe this is more difficult than some of the technical applications, I don't know. But I do think it might have been helpful to have a little bit of instruction about using Google Docs, because none of us in the group had done that before, and we are the first group presenting. So, Carl?
I didn't expect to feel quite so much like a student in this endeavor. I had I don't know what, a sort of a vision of some kind of sitting around talking about using tools, I guess. But I think that it's useful for me because I think I get a perspective that students may have. I think the very idea that we've had to struggle a little bit with the technology and how to get from here to there in the course and what to do with it, I think are very much like what our students probably go through. So I think for me it's been sort of instructional to have that feeling, and I hadn't expected that.
Yes, and since you said that, Carl, I would add the group work. That's been very interesting. It has, we know each other with nursing faculty, but it's been interesting and frustrating a little bit with the group dynamics, and also none of us knew Google Docs, and so some of learning how to do that is a learning curve. Okay, next question, number 2, ideas to include in the redesign. So, Carl?
I was quite taken with the chapter that we did. We reviewed chapter 2, the critical thinking and writing. And critical thinking, or clinical reasoning as we call it in our field, is, in my opinion, probably the most important skill that we can teach students how to use, that we can try to bring them along with. And I have felt often in reading written assignments that there wasn't very much of that there. So I'm excited by some of the ideas I found in that chapter about how to change some of the written assignments, actually the only written assignment that we have in the course, to better elicit more critical thinking or clinical reasoning, as we put it. I'm also, this kind of jumps down to one of the other questions, and by way of doing that, I want to encourage more rewriting, more revision, more editing of the papers, and I hope to do that by structuring students reviewing each other, putting them into groups and giving them guidance about how I want them to review the papers, and having them do that with some input from me, so that I don't end up being the one who reviews every draft from 30 students and then makes comments on it and then has to read all of the 30 papers as well, since I do want to have a life outside the classroom.
Okay, and I agree largely with Carl. I was really pleased to have the book. We got that ahead of time, and I didn't read a lot of the book ahead of time, but I read the last chapter first. That particularly interested me, and we all in our group were quite happy to choose Chapter 2. Critical thinking is quite an elusive term and task, and it's difficult to teach. So, yeah. The next question is about moving forward, and Carl, to address what you plan for the course.
Well, this kind of ties in with the other questions as we read the chapter. As some people have noted, I too am of the opinion that most papers are written the night before, so I want to get more student participation. One of the challenges I think that we face is engaging students in an online class. There's a dynamic that goes back and forth in a classroom that is difficult to achieve online, and that was one of the things that I wanted to do with this too.
All right. And for me, specifically learning more about using collaborating and discussions in Blackboard, both in the course that Carl is teaching and a different course that I teach. And I'd like to use more Google Docs. The students already do that on their own some, but to teach them more about collaborating within those type of programs. So the last question deals with what kind of challenges we face, and Carl addressed that a little bit, but what else, Carl?
Well, there are two big ones for me. One of them, as I alluded to, I think already, is the notion of trying to make an engaged community in an online class. The other is that the students in this class are already registered nurses. So they are people who are already practicing in a field, and then they're coming back to school to be students. So there are challenges there for me in dealing with them. Challenges to me as an instructor, challenges to them as a student. They are skilled nurses in most cases, but they are novice students again. And so there's a transition there that's often difficult for them, I think. And for me as well, in trying to deal with them. They're not as compliant and pliable as my generic students, nor are they as skilled at being students as some of my other students are.
So I found that really interesting, Carl, that that was your answer to this question. And I can't remember if you said it just now in answering question number 1, but you had said that a challenge for you was to be a student again and how that felt.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So largely we're looking at, this is a totally online course that we are revising, and to provide opportunities for more engagement, both in participating in discussions and in the written assignments. So that's all. Thank you.
Bye.